Thank you for being here and for choosing growth over silence, healing over hiding. Remember, it's not the distance that creates the shift. It's the realization of your worth, your strength, and your evolution. Keep rising, keep choosing yourself, and never forget the power you hold when you stop waiting and start becoming. If this message spoke to you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Your journey could be the light for someone else's breakthrough. Until next time, stay strong, stay grounded, and stay true to who you are. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a moment in every heartbreak when we think silence will speak louder than our words ever could. We imagine that pulling away, going no contact, and creating distance will somehow make them realize what they lost. But today, I want to take you deeper than that illusion, because the truth is, the real break doesn't come from the space between you. It comes from something far more powerful realization, not yours, but theirs. The kind that hits not when you disappear, but when they finally see you clearly, too late. Let's talk about what really shifts the balance, not through distance, but through truth. We often hear people say, just go silent, block him, disappear, as if removing yourself entirely is the most powerful move you can make. And in some situations, silence has its place. It creates space, draws boundaries, allows time to heal. But when silence becomes a strategy not rooted in your own growth, but in the hope that he'll chase you or regret losing you, then it stops being power, it becomes performance. Here's what most people don't realize: true power isn't in vanishing. It's in how you show up. It's in your presence, your energy, your choices, your life moving forward without needing permission or validation. Power is found when you walk into a room and no longer shrink to make someone else comfortable. When your light isn't dimmed by the thought of who's watching or not watching, think about it. When someone leaves or hurts you, the instinct is often to hide, to retreat, to go quiet and hope your absence echoes loudly enough to make them feel something. But how many times have you gone silent and still felt like a prisoner to the outcome, still checking your phone, still waiting, still wondering if they've noticed? That's not empowerment. That's just pain dressed up as a tactic. Presence, on the other hand, is transformative. When you shift your focus back to yourself, your goals, your growth, your joy, you start radiating something that silence never could. You begin to live. You begin to attract not just attention, but alignment. You don't need him to notice your absence because the life you're creating is too full, too rich, too you to make room for someone who treated you like an option. And presence doesn't mean performing happiness or pretending to be okay. It means actually rebuilding from the inside out. It's deciding to feel everything, learn from it, and then do something with that pain. Maybe it's starting the business you put off, taking the solo trip you never thought you had the courage to do, rekindling friendships, reconnecting with your passions, rediscovering your worth. Not because you're trying to make anyone jealous, but because you're finally putting that energy back where it always belonged, don't you? Ironically, this is what gets noticed the most, not your silence, but your self-respect. Not your absence, but your elevation, because when someone sees you no longer stuck, no longer circling their orbit, but fully standing in your own lane, rowing, glowing, grounded, they feel that, and they don't just feel your strength. They realize what they lost, not because you punished them with silence, but because you became someone who no longer needs to be heard to be seen. Presence is about staying rooted in who you are, even when someone walks away. It's being so engaged in your own evolution that whether or not they reach out doesn't even determine your day anymore. You stop asking, will they come back? And start asking, what else can I become? Because the truth is, if someone truly mattered, they wouldn't need silence to realize it. They would have seen it when you gave your heart, and if they didn't see it then, their realization now doesn't mean you need to stop moving forward. The greatest form of power is when you outgrow the space they tried to leave you in. When you are present in your life so fully, so authentically, that there is no question about your value, not to them, not to anyone. So no, power isn't in the vanishing act, it's in the transformation. In waking up each day and choosing to live for yourself, not to provoke a reaction, but because you've remembered who you are. When your life becomes about you again, not your silence, not your strategy, but your substance, that's when everything changes. True power isn't quiet, it's radiant, and the world, including the people who once took you for granted, will feel it, whether they say it or not, but by then it won't even matter, because you won't be living to be noticed. You'll be living because you're finally free. When someone leaves your life, especially someone you cared about deeply, there's a very natural instinct to wait. You wait for the apology, you wait for the text. You wait for the clarity that never came. You wait telling yourself, maybe he'll realize what he lost. Maybe he'll miss me. But what if I told you that every moment you spend waiting, you're actually holding yourself back from becoming the person he would truly regret losing? Waiting feels safe. It gives the illusion of control. It's a way to stay connected to someone who no longer shows up for you. It creates space for hope to survive. But here's the truth, waiting doesn't heal you. It just pauses your life, and while you're paused, checking your phone, replaying the conversations, analyzing what went wrong, he's moving forward, whether it's emotionally, physically, or with someone else. His world is in motion. And you're stuck in a holding pattern you never agreed to. Evolution doesn't happen in waiting, it happens in motion. It happens when you make a choice not to forget him, not to pretend it didn't matter, but to reclaim your life piece by piece. When you shift your focus from what was lost to what can now be built, growth doesn't require his remorse, it requires your decision, a decision to stop looking backward and start building forward. Because the reality is, if he couldn't see your value when you were there, your silence won't teach him what your strength already can. There is something incredibly powerful about a person who chooses growth when they have every reason to stay in grief. You don't need to have it all figured out, you just need to move step by step, day by day, into a version of yourself that isn't defined by who hurt you. Start small, get out of the house, say yes to opportunities you once declined. Invest in yourself, do the things you always said you wanted to do but kept putting off because you were too focused on him. The world responds to movement. When you evolve, when you step into your power, something shifts. You attract new energy, new people, new experiences. You don't have to force anyone to see your worth. They either recognize it or they don't. But more importantly, you begin to recognize it. You stop looking for closure and start becoming your own resolution. You stop waiting for someone to give you a reason to move on, and instead, you become the reason. Waiting keeps you in a loop. One day you feel strong, the next you're right back in that space of what if. Evolution is linear. Maybe not always smooth, but it moves you forward, not in circles. There's no closure coming that will feel satisfying enough to undo the pain. There's no perfect message that will take away the confusion. What you need is not clarity from him, but commitment from you, a commitment to your own life, your own healing, your own evolution. The irony is, the more you wait for someone to change, the more you delay your own transformation. And the longer you delay, the further you drift from the person you're meant to become. The person who doesn't just survive heartbreak, but alchemizes it into strength. The person who stops asking, why did he leave, and starts asking, who do I want to be now that I'm free? Because you are free, that's the part most people miss. You're no longer trapped in a relationship where you were questioning your worth. You're no longer bending to be enough for someone who couldn't see what was already in front of them. You're no longer adjusting your standards just to keep someone who couldn't meet them. You are free, and that freedom is a gift, not to waste in waiting, but to use for creating. Create the life that lights you up. Create a reality so full, so rich, that even the memory of who hurt you starts to fade in the brightness of what you've built. Let your evolution speak louder than your absence ever could. Let your healing be the closure. Let your happiness be the revenge, not because you need to prove anything, but because you finally understand you were never supposed to stay stuck for someone who walked away so easily. Don't wait, evolve. Because the best way to make someone wish they had treated you better is to become someone who no longer even wonders if they will. When people get hurt, when someone leaves, lies, betrays, or walks away without warning, the first instinct is often to retreat. You want to hide. You want to disappear. You want the world to stop spinning just long enough for your heart to catch up with the shock of what just happened, and hiding feels like a kind of safety. You avoid the places you went together. You mute their stories. You shut down emotionally. You convince yourself that staying out of sight will somehow keep the pain at bay, but healing isn't hiding. Healing asks more of you. Healing is rising, even when it's the last thing you feel capable of doing. Hiding can give you temporary relief, and sometimes you do need a moment to gather yourself. But staying in hiding too long turns into avoidance. You avoid the truth of what happened. You avoid your own feelings. You avoid the work of putting yourself back together because facing it seems too overwhelming. And so you numb, you distract, you scroll, you sleep. You tell people you're fine, when your chest is still tight and your mind is still looping that final conversation. And all the while, time is passing, not in a healing way, but in a stagnant, silent, stuck kind of way. Healing doesn't wait for the pain to go away. It meets the pain where it is and starts walking anyway. It's not some grand moment where everything clicks and suddenly you're okay again. It's the slow, unglamorous process of choosing yourself every day in ways both small and brave. It's making your bed even when you don't feel like it. It's going for a walk when your legs feel heavy with grief. It's calling a friend even when you'd rather isolate. It's letting yourself cry, not because you're breaking down, but because you're letting something go. Rising doesn't mean pretending you're unaffected. It means you've decided not to let what broke you keep you buried. It's not about posting pictures to prove you've moved on. It's not about saying all the right things so people think you're strong. Rising is quiet at first. It happens behind the scenes. It's the way you start to speak to yourself more kindly, the way you begin to dream again, even if those dreams feel fragile. It's in the decision to step outside, even when you still feel cracked open. The truth is, healing doesn't look the same every day. Some days, rising might look like smiling at a stranger. Other days, it might mean letting yourself rest without guilt. Some days you'll feel powerful, like you've finally turned a corner, and then out of nowhere, something will remind you, and the pain will tighten its grip for a moment. That doesn't mean you're not healing. It means you're human, and part of rising is accepting that healing isn't linear, it's layered, it's circular. You revisit pain not because you're stuck, but because your heart is doing the work of truly letting go. You don't rise because you want someone to see it. You rise because staying low keeps you in a place you were never meant to live in permanently. You rise because there is more for you than this moment of heartbreak. You rise because deep down a part of you knows that even though this hurts, it will not be the end of your story. You rise not to chase someone else's approval, but to remember what it feels like to belong to yourself again. And sometimes the greatest act of rising is the quietest one, choosing to believe in hope again, hope that not everyone will treat you the same, hope that there are still good days ahead, hope that the love you gave wasn't wasted, it simply wasn't received by the right person. Rising is a reclamation, a reminder that while pain is inevitable, staying broken is optional. You still have the power to rebuild, not into who you were before the hurt, but into someone even stronger, someone wiser, more open, more real. Healing isn't about disappearing until the pain goes away. It's about showing up for yourself in the middle of the storm and choosing, moment by moment, to rise, not because it's easy, but because you deserve a life that's bigger than your heartbreak. When heartbreak hits, it has a way of draining everything from you, not just your sense of love or trust, but your energy, your confidence, and the small joys that used to make life feel light. You find yourself walking through days like they're heavy, with a quiet ache you can't always explain to the people around you. Things that once brought you excitement, your hobbies, your passions, even laughter, suddenly feel distant. You're not just grieving a person, you're grieving the version of yourself that felt secure, confident, and happy before they left. That's why healing isn't just about letting go of someone else. It's also about reclaiming your joy and rebuilding your confidence piece by piece. Joy doesn't always come rushing back the moment someone exits your life. In fact, it often hides behind the confusion and self-doubt they left behind. After someone makes you feel like you're not enough, or worse, after you start believing it yourself, it's easy to think joy is something you'll never fully get back, but joy isn't gone, it's just buried underneath all the noise. The noise of overthinking, of comparing, of asking what you did wrong. And to reclaim it, you don't have to chase happiness. You have to return to the small things that once made you feel alive. It starts with giving yourself permission to enjoy things again, even if they feel a little dull at first. Maybe it's music, maybe it's walking outside without your phone, maybe it's cooking your favorite meal, even if you're only cooking for one. Joy doesn't have to be loud or dramatic. In fact, in the early stages of healing, it usually isn't. It's a quiet return to yourself. It's sitting in your own space and not feeling haunted by memories. It's having a conversation and realizing you laughed without forcing it. These are not small victories. They are signs that your heart is beginning to thaw. Confidence is closely tied to joy because when you begin to feel good again, even in small bursts, you start to remember that you are capable of creating your own happiness. And when your happiness no longer depends on someone else's presence or approval, your confidence starts to rebuild from the inside out, no longer shaped by how they saw you, but by how you choose to see yourself now. Rebuilding confidence after heartbreak isn't about standing in front of a mirror repeating affirmations, though that may help for some. It's deeper than that. It's about slowly trusting yourself again, trusting your decisions, trusting your instincts, trusting that the love you gave wasn't a mistake, even if it wasn't received the way you hoped. Confidence comes back when you stop apologizing for your emotions. When you stop blaming yourself for someone else's inability to love you well, when you stop shrinking to fit into places that never made room for your worth, confidence isn't about pretending you're okay when you're not. It's about owning where you are and knowing that you're allowed to be a work in progress. It's about putting one foot in front of the other even when your steps feel shaky. Every time you keep going, every time you show up for your life despite the weight you carry, you send a message to yourself that says, I matter. And that's what rebuilding confidence looks like, a series of decisions that honor your worth, even when it's hard to believe in it. There will be moments when you fall back into old patterns, when you question your progress, when a memory hits you out of nowhere and makes you feel like you're back at day one. That doesn't mean you've lost your joy or your confidence. It means you're still human. Healing doesn't erase your past. It gives you the strength to stop letting it control you. The more you lean into the things that make you feel grounded and whole, the less you'll feel defined by the things that broke you. So every time you say yes to something that makes your soul feel light, even for a second, you're not just surviving, you're reclaiming joy. And every time you make a choice that reflects your value instead of your fear, you're not just coping. You're rebuilding confidence, slowly, steadily, and in your own time. You're becoming someone who didn't just get through it, but someone who grew through it. When someone walks away from you, especially without explanation or with little regard for how it affects you, the temptation is to think that distance will teach them what closeness didn't. You pull away. You block, unfollow, go silent. You wait in the shadows, hoping that maybe, just maybe, the absence will be loud enough to shake them awake, and in doing so, you place your power in the space between you, thinking that if they just miss you hard enough, they'll come running back. But here's the truth. The break never truly comes from the silence you impose. It comes from the realization they have on their own. Realization is what breaks a person, not the distance, not the blocked number, not the unread messages. It's what they come to understand after you've already stopped trying to be understood. Distance may be the first signal. It might create the initial jolt of your absence. But people who aren't emotionally ready, people who didn't value you when they had you, don't always respond to space the way you hope they will. Some will fill the silence with distractions, temporary replacements, or denial. They'll pretend it doesn't hurt. They'll stay numb. They'll convince themselves they're fine because facing the truth means facing how badly they handled what they had. That kind of truth is uncomfortable. And it takes time. Realization, on the other hand, is unavoidable. It catches up with people, sometimes not for days or weeks, but months or even years. And when it does, it doesn't come softly. It crashes in. It hits them when they're scrolling and stumble across an old photo, when they hear a song that used to mean something, when they meet someone new and realize the connection isn't the same. It creeps in during the quiet moments, the ones they used to fill with you. That's when the break happens, not because you weren't there, but because they suddenly see everything they didn't value when you were. Realization has a way of showing up when their world slows down. When they're finally still enough to reflect, when the next relationship fails or the excitement fades, and they begin to understand that what they had with you wasn't just a phase, it was something real. Maybe they start to replay conversations. Maybe they remember the way you looked at them, the way you supported them, the way you stayed even when they gave you every reason to leave. That memory becomes heavier with time, not lighter. Because what they didn't feel in the moment, your loyalty, your depth, your genuine presence, they now start to feel in the absence of it. And by the time that realization sets in, you're already in a different space. You've grown, you've healed, you've been through the mess and found your way back to yourself. You're no longer waiting for them to realize anything. You're no longer measuring your progress by whether or not they notice you're gone. You're not checking your phone, hoping for the moment they reach out, because you've realized something too. You've realized that your peace matters more than their closure, that your growth is more important than their regret. They may try to come back, they may send the message, reach out unexpectedly, pretend like time hasn't passed, but the power shift has already happened because you no longer need their recognition to feel worthy. You're not the same person they walked away from. You're not sitting in that same emotional space. You've rebuilt without their support, and there's a kind of strength in that, a quiet, powerful confidence that says, I'm good, whether you see it now or not. That's what breaks someone. It's not your distance. It's the moment they realize they can't access you anymore, not just physically, but emotionally. That the door they once walked in and out of so casually is now closed, not out of bitterness, but out of growth. That the version of you they once knew no longer exists in the same way. And more than anything, it's the awareness that they had something rare, something real. And they lost it not because you left, but because they didn't show up when it mattered most. Distance may start the silence, but realization delivers the echo, and that echo doesn't just haunt, it teaches, it humbles, it breaks. Thank you for being here and for choosing growth over silence, healing over hiding. Remember, it's not the distance that creates the shift. It's the realization of your worth, your strength, and your evolution. Keep rising, keep choosing yourself, and never forget the power you hold when you stop waiting and start becoming. If this message spoke to you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Your journey could be the light for someone else's breakthrough. Until next time, stay strong, stay grounded, and stay true to who you are.